Welcome to She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, cannabis socialite.
And I am Dashita Dawson, the weed head.
Hi, sis.
Hey, sis.
On today's episode of She Blaze, Ohio is confused about the definition of adult use. Congress has released a marijuana policy report, and we answer the question on why mature markets are failing.
Hey, sis.
Hey.
Well, first of all, I'm glad. What are we? Episode number 2?
I know, right? We being consistent.
New consistencies. And we'll get to a point where we're actually at 12. But I'm loving that we're here giving the information to the people. So what do we got first? My high of the week?
Yes. What is your high of the week, darling?
My high of the week is actually the Bronx joint, and I apologize because I think my camera is a mirror, but Bronx joint is celebrating 2-year anniversary. Shout out to Alex Otecho, who is a Card Inc. president of the board, as well as the licensee for Bronx Joint. I got the chance to go up to the Hunts Point area. Now, if you know the Bronx, Hunts Point, for the longest time when I grew up, was definitely destitute. It didn't have anything there. It was a lot of empty real estate that were retail storefronts that didn't really do well, maybe through the 90s and 2000s, and then after maybe got a little bit of built up. COVID took a hit to the area, but it's a shopping area, and it's also a junction where a lot of buses stop in, and they took a pretty large spot right in the middle of all that. And I was just really proud to be back after seeing the spot when it first was included in the Dasney funds locations. I got to see it empty, and I got to see it without having the vision of Bronx Joint on it. He has a beautiful mural on the wall that actually is a depiction of his mother when she was younger. It's awesome. But I think more than anything else, just to see it was family run. I met his brother in the front, met the uncle Tio in the back. It was they had food, they had the music going, it was playing everything that you want to hear up in the Bronx, right? And essentially it was just a good time, but it was really indication of how far the market has come. He did his part, they did their part, and they're representing. And so that's always Bronx Joint. Check them out if you're up that way.
I know that's right. Well, my high of the week is a little different. Shout out to Afro Man. He is a cannabis cultural real staple. What is his song?
Lemon Pound Cake.
Lemon Pound Cake. That's the song after, but what song he got famous was Because I Got
Fix
High.
My Door?
You are hilarious.
That's one of the songs.
This is him famous now, but kind of pre-legalization, Because I Got High was a staple,
Yes.
especially in the early YouTube era, was a staple on cannabis culture. It was more, we didn't like it necessarily because it kind of depicted the couch potato kind of stereotype, but however, he let us know that he got high and he is not a couch potato, and he got sued by the Ohio police officer for defamation. And guess what? He done won. Him with his full flag outfit, glasses, shoes. It was the most. He also had been photographed with the same outfit, child, with the current president, Donald Trump. So quite a coinkydink.
That is not a coinkydink. This is a man who obviously, he's an artist. I think it's ridiculous that the Ohio police decided that they were going to sue him. He's using his own footage from his own house, and y'all did kick in his door, and y'all did ruin his property. For what? I don't know. We still don't know. They didn't find nothing, right? They didn't find nothing. So, more power to him to use actually not use it. He was sued, so he was the defendant. That meant he defended himself. He didn't bring a lawsuit on them, and hopefully he's able to capitalize on it even further. The songs I was talking about are the ones that caused the lawsuit because he used in the video footage from when they was literally kicking in his door
and eating his pound cake.
Yeah, or smelling it. They found that's the only thing they found in his spot. Basically an ounce or two, a couple ounces of lemon pound cake flour. Nothing
Mm.
really worth all of what they did, by the way, because
Yes,
Ohio is still legal in some capacities.
yes, sis. And you done already merged us into where I was trying to go, into the first hot topic. Because yes, you can have a couple ounces or two or one in Ohio because it's adult use. But they're taking some huge step backwards. And so I wanted us to get into hot topic number one.
Let's get it.
Hot topic number one: Ohio is a legal mess. Literally, it's a legal mess. Y'all, they saying that the MSOs is out here running Ohio like the cartel business, and they have a lawsuit of Ohio brought against Ohio is very litigious. I'm sorry, I'm not to swerve off, but they are litigious out there. Gosh, y'all got a lot going on. Y'all can just sue people, but the state is suing the cannabis companies saying this is a cannabis cartel lawsuit. And on top of that, as they are bringing this against the businesses, they're also rolling back a lot of initiatives as far as having very hard rules on hemp intoxication products, and then they're creating some weird THC caps around products, 70% THC and concentrate, 35% THC and cannabis flower. So, like, what is happening, Ohio?
Well, to your point, it is a legal mess. There's a lot of things that are happening that we should all have our attention on. There are some political leaders within Ohio's infrastructure that are on our side. The attorney general is one of them. And I wouldn't say on our side, but on the side of small business and a real stratification of the market, not a consolidation and a monopolization, a lot of Asians in
Mhm.
the market. But we'll talk a little bit about that. And then on the flip side, the legislative leaders are putting in place things that are meant to recriminalize. We have more conservative leadership there, finding its way to bills and the like that are meant to walk it back. And we are in that type of environment for all of the states that are more conservative, a little bit more purple. Even though, to be honest, there's conservative perspectives on the Democrat side as well. But a lot of this is largely Republican led. And it's just important to note that they didn't really get a chance to, like you said, launch their market. And so this is all happening before the adult use market has really come to fruition fully. But talking about the cartels, and I want to shout out the Parabola Center, which was my high of the week last week. The only reason I'm also kind of bringing that back is because they focus on anti-monopolization, their Substack. You'll learn a lot more if you actually subscribe. They have a free subscription as well. But basically, they're alleging here that there was price fixing. Now, price fixing essentially puts you in a position where, especially if you're new as a, let's say, retailer to the market, they are setting the pricing for the market. And so for you to be competitive, you need to be at their price point. And that might mean less margins for you where they can actually sustain that type of lower margin. You may not. We're seeing some of that in New York, for example, but a lot of small boutiques are relying on their customer service and their personalization of the experience to maintain the proper margins that will allow them to be successful. But we are seeing price compression, which is a nicer way of saying price fixing, because if the big companies start doing it, right, then all of them start to follow suit. But let's be honest, where this comes to be illegal is when they meet about it or their associations that they're part of, they talk about it and they conspire to do that. They are in collusion together against, keeping it from the rest of the market, that is the game plan. There are a lot of companies listed here, a few of them that, we would expect the usual suspects, but there's some that are also in the East Coast, because this is Midwest. On the East Coast, they are cosplaying social equity champions somewhat. We need to see them actually do the work, but yeah, there's quite a few here that I'm not surprised based off of what we know about the company.
Absolutely. And when she say there's quite a few here, you already know we got the links and things. So you stay up to date. Normally we drop it in our comments, but we don't have a producer right now. So when we get a producer, we will drop the links in the comments, but look in the description because baby, we got the links.
And we're
And
looking for producers as well. That's a good uh
we are looking for producers. If y'all want to join the team, feel free to hop in the DMs. Where you can follow us is she_blaze on Instagram. You can also let us know in the comment sections of the video, if you are watching us live or if you're in the replay crew. So yeah, girl, this is crazy. But ultimately, with all this collusion, conspiracy on both ends, the legal industry and the government's industry, how does this, like, how do these new restrictions hurt or help the consumer market?
Well, I mean, on some level, the price compression can make you feel like, oh, my prices are lower, but your prices are lower and there's no need for these big old companies to do the consumer marketing and or product development to really earn your dollars. They're not transitioning you across the illegal or legacy market into the legal market with what the best the legal market has to offer. They basically want to, sell you their remediated product that tends to be a bit more trash, right? In terms of real flour. I give them some props on the formulation, some. I'll give them some props on putting together manufactured goods because that is a higher order of like, requirements in terms of what that looks like. But not for nothing, the whole natural hair industry really was started with stuff we made in our kitchen, right? And so that is very much the same thing that we're experiencing here. So we don't need all that to make it a good product and to make it a consistent one. And they're making it seem as such that they're, putting all this effort, but most of the markets, when you look under the hood, the effort is not there, not in product innovation, not in actual consumer market. They're not even bothering to have social and economic equity departments anymore. Most of those were eliminated with DEI. In fact, believe it or not, the cannabis industry started their anti-DEI efforts well before that became a Trump administration thing. So these are companies that are out for broke, so to speak, making you broke as a consumer to, continue to spend on things that are maybe subpar or less than stellar. And then also, they don't want other small business, mom and pop. They don't want those type of owners in the market. This is evident because when you drive down the price in this way, or you decide on the price, you are prefixing knowing what the pipeline looks like, and most of these retailers are buying in the pipeline. You're prefixing their margins to be very, very challenging. So they either are going to increase their price, and that means their consumer might complain, or they are going to play that price game, which is never smart. Ask anybody that's tried to compete with Walmart, and they will go out of business ultimately. One of the things I noticed when we did some of the research here, it was something like 13 out of the 90 counties have only MSO stores, 18 out of the 90 counties. So it's like, here it is, almost 20%, more than 20% of the counties around the entire state are dominated only by multi-state operators, no new operators. That's what they want.
And they vertically integrated.
So that
That's
means
the
they're
T.
making their own product.
Yeah, making and selling their own products. So that's the T. So the people that's watching, please let us know who actually here is going to Ohio for a cannabis vacation, and who the hell told Ohio to legalize like this. All right. So we're going to get into our next topic, you guys. Make sure you are liking and subscribing to the channel and the video so we can keep the tea coming, child. But
One thing, can I just say that there are only 37 cultivators that are licensed in Ohio as well. So their like that price compression plus controlling the genetics, controlling what comes out of the ground available to the entire market is 37.
wild crazy, wild crazy. We're gonna get into some more stuff like that, you guys. So our hot topic number 2 is Snoop Dogg. He decided he wanted to cash in on cannabis industry, because if you know much about Snoop Dogg, he's been trying to itch his way in the cannabis industry. I feel like as a celebrity, it's kind of hard, especially when you made your platform on smoking and consuming cannabis. One, you don't do it anymore, and two, you've branched out into so many different areas that you want to come back to where you got it started, essentially. Well, child, he tried to cash in on the trademark smoke weed every day. The people got
Smoke
back to him.
weed every day.
Yeah, exactly. And the people got back to him and they said, access denied. This is a colloquial term. This is a cultural term. This is the everyday reference that the people they have. They own this. You cannot trademark it. Try to find your cannabis business somewhere else, honey. So, Dishita, let us know, what does that mean for the culture? Like, are we winning right here with that or what?
In some ways we are, but it's his, like, he is the legacy for why we are, or at least Nate Dogg is. This wouldn't be part of colloquial conversation if that song wasn't so iconic over 25 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Even I think it's more than 30 years old, to be real, but I don't know. I know it's one of their later songs. It was a collab. Was Snoop on the record? Absolutely. But everybody knows, like, after Doom 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 Doom, you pause and then you're going to say smoke weed every day. That is a line that unfortunately Nate Dogg is no longer with us, and it's almost like Snoop wanted to capitalize. But sorry, Snoop, you have been an influence on the culture, and we are now 45 years and older. We are in fact influencing, because we give the speeches, we give we're the mentors. I know, because I'm in that age group. And so yeah, him being able to capitalize on it solely when it is something that we all say and can be said, and now my son is saying he's in his 20s, it means, Snoop, you missed your opportunity. There are new things that need to be connected, and it's okay for him to go ahead and try to do that. But I think in this case, yes, the culture has, and the community has taken it away. And odds are Nate Dogg kind of probably got it from wherever they grew up, right? I think we've gotten to a point where we're choosing to capitalize on the culture without actually giving back. And I'm not saying Snoop is not giving back per se. He gives back memes every day. He be having me crying on the internet. But he's still, to me, a slither of the culture, and that kind of thing, with Nate even being gone, like, this man is not even alive. It feels, it didn't feel right anyway. It's like, if anybody's gonna get that, let that be Nate Dogg. But at this point, yeah, unfortunately for him, we playing our elevator music is Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, like, that's elevator, LL, like, that's elevator music now. It's in commercials that we wouldn't expect. It's in TV commercials, okay? Commercials for 15 and over.
Right.
AARP is getting these mofos to come do covers. So we're in a different time, and he missed it, unfortunately. Maybe in the 90s or the early 2000s, he could have gotten away with that. Now it's unfortunate, but we took it.
That's true. Well, good for him. He didn't need it anyway. So,
I kind of agree with you there.
it's like he
Drug
don't do
emoji.
nothing for, yeah, he don't do nothing for the cannabis industry but come and appear. We pay him. And I think that we as a
That
culture
part.
in this society just needs to stop trying to monetize on everything. Like everything, I get it. We want to make money, but some things are not just meant to be monetized. And smoke weed every day, smoking in the park, or not the park, but smoking in a group cipher is a colloquial thing. It's a cultural thing. People consume cannabis every day. Some stuff's not meant to be monetized, and I think at some point we need to get to that as a society. So as we get to that point, we talk about, trademark, because that's federal. There is a lot happening with the feds too. So when they say trademark denied because everybody smoke weed all day, baby, the people in the government got their eyes on our industry. So hot topic number 3 is about how Congress released a marijuana policy report through their research department, essentially. And they're letting us know that they don't care what the man up there say. It's still going to be a lot of policy gaps even after reschedule or hopefully descheduling, because you just never know nowadays. So let's get into it.
Well, I mean, some of this is just a water is wet report.
Is
Like,
it wet? Is it slippery? Never mind.
it's wet. It's like, as young people say, like, I'm not understanding. Like as I was reading it, I was like, well, we already know this. But the reality is that the shenanigans of last year with this whole executive order has made it such that the executive branch, that was their move, right? If we're talking about this as a chess match, that was their move. they're not really doing anything with it. It wasn't mentioned in the State of the Union. And so now the legislative branch is kind of saying, well, guess what? We're not moving uninformed. And that's important to note that this was all backed by the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, which would not exist without Representative Barbara Lee, who is now the mayor of Oakland, I believe. But my point being is a Black woman started a caucus that continues in Congress more than a decade later. And it is that type of caucus that brings together the conversation around marijuana policy and these gaps. But the report itself, which is called The Federal Status of Marijuana and the Policy Gap with States, is a water is wet report, especially when you think about my experience with Cannabis Regulators of Color Coalition. Like, we've been knowing this, okay? What we're getting at, though, is an ability for something to be referenced in the Library of Congress that is on the books to kind of say, hey, even though rescheduling may be coming down the pipe, there are still many things that are going to be necessary that we're going to have to legislate in order to still close this gap. And we talk a lot about the fact that, let's look at New York. New York is licensing justice involved, justice impacted individuals. People who have previously been arrested and or incarcerated for marijuana related issues when it was criminalized. Well, the DEA has not changed the desire. They're not going to reschedule it and it still not be criminalized. Rescheduling is still criminalization. And so even that gap means, well, how does someone who's licensed in a New York market with that type of background get licensed through the DEA? The answer is obvious. They don't. That's a gap. So it's one of the things that I think is called out here is just how much doesn't get addressed, how much is still criminalized when we reschedule versus what's going on with the states. Even the most
Child, my son is yelling, yelling, yelling because I got him in the compartment to eat. So every time I'm gonna talk, he's now thinking he needs to talk too, and I'm trying to tell him to shush. So I'm gonna keep my fourth wall in. But yes, the water is wet. They say that the rescheduling is not going to fix the tax issue, is not going to fix interstate commerce, is in terms of like states being able to move cannabis state to state. Because for the people that don't know that, because there are a lot of people that do not understand conceptually, it is illegal to bring your cannabis out of state. We don't know, we don't care how close the state is to your home. And that, you know, it may still actually hurt, it can't hurt the cannabis industry, but it's the rescheduling may not affect the already legalized states. It more likely would affect medical use states or states that have that are trying to figure out what their medical programming would look like. Already adult use states, according to the policy, is kind of like, man, you already did it. You know, you've already taken the initiative as a state. So what do you think? Can we just have a prediction before we move on to our next hot topic, darling? Give me your prediction on what cannabis policy is going to look like during the next cycle of elections. I'm talking about the campaigns with the president and congressional campaigns, House and Senate.
I think it's going to depend on the state for the House and Senate, right? Like some states like Ohio, where they're struggling with the balance of perspective. Conservative perspectives are now being more prevalent across both parties, but it's most likely that you will find some of the Democratic Party being able to still hold the line, like in New York, on some of the perspectives around social equity, social justice, racial justice, and licensing, as well as adult use access. But I think most of the states are really going to have to defend medical and really start to converge on how do they improve their medical programs? How do they ensure there's more access there? How do they learn from the mistakes of the original first iteration of medical programs? So we're seeing that happen as people fall back on adult use in some ways. We don't want recriminalization, but they fall back. We do need them to beef up, and we're hoping, and I guess that's sort of where I come in as an influencer, hoping that they beef up on the medical, because that's the only thing that's going to stand the chance against what's happening at federal level. At the federal level, I think we've gotten enough just signaling that there's a medicinal value. Like they've been got that because there was a patent, like, but that was 1998, and we are talking about 2026, and for the next 4 years or so, they know there's medicinal benefits, and now their constituents are also fighting for it, which is why the executive order made mention to hemp derived CBDs, and so a CBD product. So I think it's important for us to lean in on what's happening with the federal hemp issue, because that's going to be the first layer of really re-education and destigmatization around cannabinoids and what they need to be done, like, in terms of being able to create product for our body, educate medical professionals and the like. And so I just feel like, again, we're converging on science and medicine, but we're also dealing with an idiocracy cycle as well. So there's going to be a lot of need to wade through misinformation. And we didn't put it this week, but that misinformation that's circulating among CNN and the New York Times is like, yo, these was used to be our outlets. They cannot be anymore. The same way we won't get what we need to get talking about what's happening with our war and the Epstein files, we're not going to get what we need from them for cannabis either.
Not in a good way, and I think this helps because us talk about it really because it's really about capitalism too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Mediocrity in the different like positions and stuff. Yes, but it is about capitalism. It's about the dollars and cents. And they said they do not care about your mom and pop stores no more. And we are willing to do whatever it takes to knock them down. And so I think that brings us into hot topic, our main topic, not even our hot topic, our main topic, because we are decades into cannabis legalization, darling. And we are seeing some really bad trends happening in states that have been adult use, meaning they medical market and they have adult use 21 and up or 18 and up to use cannabis products, and they are falling off and they're failing, and we are seeing a lot of just bad market trends happening in these states. So let's talk about it just so y'all know what states are even considered 10-year-old. We have Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, relax, child. Maine, Massachusetts, they have home grow. And so these are states with adult use either voted on in 2016 or before 2016 that are seeing a huge dip in their tax revenue. So how much money the state is collecting from the legal businesses. Licensing, not only do they have licensing caps, sometimes they actually just don't have people applying for licenses anymore. And the third thing is open, operating, and successful plant touching businesses and stores. Those are the three biggest hits in these 10-year-old plus markets.
Definitely agree with you there. We want to start with the oldest, with Colorado. I'm always going to shout out the people who are members of Cannabis Regulators of Color Coalition. So the head of that office is Dominique Mangiola. She was actually our CRCC Member of the Year in 2025. And she provides us with a lot of data and a lot of reports. There's a lot of learning. Colorado is also actively doing natural medicine as a more global area that she oversees, which is inclusive of psilocybin. So it's leading the way on that too. But while it's leading the way, to your point, there's a dip. And a large part of the dip with Colorado is for a long time, Colorado's marijuana revenue was driven by tourism when they were the only. They legalized in 2012, whereas the other ones, as you talked about, these were 2016 ballot initiatives and or legalization efforts. I believe those were all ballot initiatives, actually, with Illinois being the one that was the first to be legislated in 2018. But the fact of the matter is that Colorado is still leading in tax revenue above nicotine products, above tobacco products, above alcohol. So it's actually still at the forefront of the most tax revenue from these quote unquote vices, and largely because cannabis is inherently medicinal, and is there other reasons why we're using it other than just to have a good time or just to socialize? But yes, they are seeing a decline as compared to previous years because other states around them are legalizing, but it's still outpacing the other areas that they're typically compared to. And I think in large part what will need to happen with Colorado is maybe a little bit more partnership with their state tourism agency, because almost every state has one, where they actually start to lean in a little bit. I had to struggle with this with Oregon. Lean in on the fact that you legalize. It isn't a taboo anymore. The governor is there, and he was actually boasting about $1 billion in sales in 2025. So again, I think their structure is mostly decent. It's not a high tax. We'll talk about Washington, but that's like they're so high tax in Washington that only a tourist is going to buy there. Whereas Colorado has an opportunity, and they have had, they have their local revenue drivers, and they also have the tourists. But the decline is from tourism because other states have legalized.
I'm glad you said that. Everyone watching, please drop in the comments. What is your favorite cannabis state right now? In terms of adult use, you 21 and up, let us know in the comments who's your favorite cannabis state and where'd you like to go on vacation as a cannabis tourist. And so I think you put in a great next question, because I Washington does have a very high tax, and they say it's something called an excise tax. Could you explain that for me?
Yes, a fancy word for it pretty much gets passed on to the consumer. So there's a lot of taxes along the supply chain. Some of those taxes are right at the register. So you see them at the bottom. And in certain states like New York, you're going to see your state tax. You're going to also see a local tax, a city or a county, sometimes county and city, depending on where you're at in the country. So these are taxes that are applied generally to anything that you're really going to buy, foods. And over the last decade or so, there's been a lot of effort on the part of government to provide extra taxes on things that they consider to be bad for you. So there's like in Pennsylvania and in Maryland, they're like real heavy sugar tax. So I'm like, don't go down there trying to buy anything that has a high sugar percentage, especially if it's meant to be for kids. You will see it be way more expensive than even New Jersey or New York, which has a higher excise tax period, right? The excise tax also varies from state to state, and it sometimes can include a local tax. In most cases, though, it doesn't. Oregon was different. Like literally, Oregon had a state tax, and then the local tax in Portland was 3%. In New York, it's all 13% at the retail for the excise tax. It's the determinant also of what cannabis tax revenue looks like, how much the state is making on cannabis tax revenue, and that's at retail. But then in the middle of the supply chain, there's been added taxes on the cultivator or the processor before it gets to distributor, or from cultivator to processor, to pay for taxes on THC level, taxes on cultivation intent. It makes it so much more complicated. In New Jersey, they actually made that tax be the social equity tax, which meant like we go and track that, and that's what gives the social equity. So of course, all the while, it's already fought heavily against by farmers and cultivators in so many states. So now you put people in a precarious position where they're fighting it, but then it almost seems like they're fighting the social equity. They may be fighting both. It is complicated and it's unnecessary, but this is the way government makes money
But
on cannabis.
why do we see it so much in adult use states? Like, why is this common, and who decided to make this happen?
To be honest, this has been the false narrative circulating among legislators since really the first adult use state started, which was Colorado. And essentially, the belief is that these are multi-billion-dollar industries we're creating. This is true, but we're going to extract as much as possible from it. I'm excited to be talking about this more at the International Women's Cannabis Conference coming up on the 29th. We're going to drop the link for that as well. But I talk about the science of creating these multi-billion-dollar markets, and a large part of the big issues we saw from the beginning is the belief that multi-billion-dollar market meant multi-billion-dollar companies, and it don't even mean multi-million $1 million companies. It's $100,000 companies, mom and pop companies typically, and they're doing a lot here to put pressure on the market to extract a certain amount of money. Now on the West Coast, it was really purely for extraction. Let's build roads. Let's like use the money for gaps in the budget. Whereas on the East Coast, it became the storyline behind how do we pay for social equity? How do we pay for communities disproportionately impacted and get reinvestment, even though we had to fight for it? And in no state does 100% of the cannabis tax revenue go back to that. We've had to fight for percentages, like New York with 40 and Illinois with 30. So it's because they believe that this is the way to explain making the devil's lettuce available to everyone and open. And so sometimes the excise tax is enormous because they believe it's a vice. It's like the sugar tax, right? It's like the cigarette tax. They don't want people to really do it. The tax makes it a deterrent. So if you're willing to pay that much more than the value of it, because it's tax that you're paying, then like in Washington, then go right ahead. And the only people really willing to do that in Washington are tourists to Washington, where you're like, okay, I didn't travel with my weed and I want to get some. And this is a market I could do that. I'm
Right.
willing to pay 37% tax.
I mean, we're New Yorkers, so we know what it's like paying taxes, okay? Especially if you're a New Yorker on a little bitty island, okay? You get four tax, so five now because you want weed, but that's a different story for a different day. But I'm so glad you broke that down for us because sometimes people don't know why they're paying taxes, and then they talk about, oh, the legal market's still running. Yeah, because like who wants to pay taxes on anything? Duh.
And not like that. And are you getting something good? Talk about it, because Ohio, imagine you got price compression, limited product innovation. Yes, it's a lower price, but you're still paying taxes on it. I don't say this lightly because I have helped build and architect some of these legal markets, but there is no real incentive if you have a good plug or you grow your own shit. Real talk. There is very little incentive to shop from the legal market other than if you know that your market has some integrity around testing. We'll talk about how Nevada wasn't that. And if you know for sure that the formulation that's described, it has some proof of it in a COA as well, also related to testing. Because sometimes it's like testing the bad stuff that shouldn't be in it, and that's what you want to be safety first about. But then also, am I really getting what you're saying, or are you just marketing to me? I do like the manufactured goods in the market. They're getting better, way better than when we started in Arizona and in Nevada. We was getting little baggies, and it was like, a little label across the front, like really for an envelope that was written 250 milligrams. It's like for whatever is in the baggie. That's not a retail experience I want. And I think I know I'm a little bougie about it because I come from that background as an executive. But to be truthful, this is any consumer. You want to know what you're getting, and you want to feel like it's reliable. Period.
Absolutely. And I do feel like to your point, the consumer goods are getting better. It is difficult when all of our products are coming from China, as far as just like the products to produce the actual product, or the packaging, or even the seeds,
Hmm.
because they're the leading market on CBD seeds, but or hemp seeds. That's a very interesting topic we talked about 100 episodes ago, literally, on She Blaze. So I agree, and I still want to know who the heck told Ohio to go ahead and legalize like that. And y'all throw that opinion in the comments too, because what is they doing? And I did not realize that so much of the social equity revenue is coming from the taxes on East Coast. That's quite a cook wink a dink. And we're definitely going to have to continue to dive in deep, because where is the results in the funding, darling? But just one last thing, because as a business expert, as a person that has ran so many successful businesses, how can and you are the fixer or the turnaround queen for a failing business, honey. You come in and fix the whole failing P&L. How can states recover from the dip in the tax revenue?
Well, first, I think states have to change their mindset and recognize that we've lost the plot. People shop adult use not for vices, but because of largely sleep pain and anxiety, which are medical issues that represent multiple trillions of dollars in pharmaceutical sales. Right. So if we're losing the plot on even what cannabis can do for the constituents that you represent, you're never going to understand the best way to actually get your market to thrive. And part of that thriving is people got to really believe it's worth it to shop the legal market. New York sold a dollar and a dream, if you will, for many different ways. And I'm going to have such a good time talking junk about New York as the year goes on, in a good way, because somebody's got to push, right? Someone's got to hold the line. But it is in a mature market yet, but it is indeed failing to step up to the challenge on certain things that it promised out the gate. And not for one reason, but a lot of reasons. And one of them is not understanding, like, we're not building, if we build it, they will come kind of things. We need to really take it back to foundational, re-educate, stand on business when it comes to the real like the real history of cannabis, both on science and justice components. We need to defend what we're doing better, and we need to use the cannabis tax revenue before they change their mind. New York has gotten more than $80 million that should be part of the community tax reinvestment fund, but only 5 million really got approved and got finally designated last year, the fastest that I've seen. So I will shout out the people over there in OCM who have done some of that work. But like, yeah, now, but that's only 5 million. Now this year is 15 million, which was a fight. They was going to try to do 5 million again. Why are we holding on to the money? Who is getting the money as well? When we look at the portfolio of last year, they struggled with getting it out to the small, local organizations. So to your point, how is cannabis tax revenue really working in the social equity realm? It isn't yet. It's like mofos is holding on to it, waiting for that DEI switch to flip, as they have, and like really starting to become more conservative about use. We have to fight for it, and I think that's a big gap that I've kind of started to fill in, like to say, no, we sold a certain type of market. It's our job, sort of, no matter what your position is, to determine, okay, how do we make sure we deliver that market? And you can do it from the private sector. We're doing it just from this show, real talk, just by making sure people know what's what and have the receipts and saying it, and not, being afraid to call people out about where we're shortcoming the industry. This is definitely a government shortcome, but when you got companies that are doing the things that they're doing, like that's described in Ohio, allegedly, just to protect us legally, the fact of the matter is, it's not just there. There are a lot of other spaces in New York. Those same type of companies, many of them, 4 or 5 of that 8 or 9, they chose not to do anything with the medical market. They closed dispensaries here. They waved the flag saying, we're not making any money. They limited the assortment here. So now what you get in the medical use is pretty much the same exact thing you would get in adult use, but then how does that benefit being part of the New York never demanded a different assortment, never demanded the excellence. So, or if it did, it didn't do it in front of the rest of the constituents. That we didn't have anything to get behind. It's us that's fighting for it at the end.
Yes, and they are definitely fighting to keep the medical market alive. Federal policy changing does not help. But thank you so much for breaking that all the way down for us. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that is our signal to go. As you guys know, we are less than an hour now as we are doing She Blaze Weekly. Before, we used to be on here for 2-3 hours live streaming our thoughts about cannabis. But honey, the block is hot. The block is hot. So I definitely understand. Shout out to Sherry. Thank you for watching. And Dashida, please drop us with some last minute thoughts and theories as we get up out of here on Saturday.
Yes. Well, one, thank you so much for always finding the tea. The big thing is we're still in this, and we've got to be in it with a foot on the line. It is not our time to move back because of the quote unquote time in history. If any other time, this is actually that time. We actually probably need to lean in a little bit more and put a sledgehammer to some of these old conventional things that was proven not to be true more than 50 years ago. And so you'll find a lot more of that on my Instagram. I'm at the Weed Head Co, all one word, TheWeedHeadCo, the Weed Head Co on Instagram. They shut down my Deshita Dawson, but you can also find me there on X or Twitter. I just got on TikTok. Mostly you'll see me vacationing because your girl has a real focus on self-care, because if we're going to do the work, we actually have to take care of ourselves to have the longevity in it. Congratulations again on 10 years, more than 100 episodes to my baby sis Ice. I remember when this just was an idea, and so I'm just so proud that we're moved forward with season 7.
Yes, and we have so many exciting things this season, you guys. Keep watching us as we keep going and live streaming on other platforms too. Definitely, please understand we are going to get an expose on what it's really like to run a cannabis business for the government, darling. We're going to definitely give you some behind the scenes of what it's like building a legal operating business, licensed cannabis business in a legal adult use state. And of course, we have guests coming on live in studio production. We also going to do a live in front of the company cannabis podcast like we did for CWCBE a couple years ago. We did a live episode. So we're going to bring that back, and we're going to bring some guests as well, because there's a lot of people in the industry that's been here just as long as us and still shaping the laws. So thank you so much. And please remember to follow us on IG as she_blaze. Okay. And make sure you subscribe to our channel at the We Head Co. And like and subscribe to this video and share, please. So let's go ahead and get out of here and get our day started. And we appreciate everybody for watching.
Bye, sis.
Bye, sis.